When Solomon had finished building the temple of the Lord and the royal palace, and that he had achieved all he had desired to do, that was 20 years. We read it earlier that the building of the palace took 13 years after the 7 years it took to build the temple. So this is 20 years. We're halfway through Solomon's reign. This is at the 20-year mark. The Lord appeared to him a second time, as he had appeared to him at Gibeon. The Lord said to him, I have heard the prayer and plea you have made before me. I have consecrated this temple, which you have built, by putting my name there forever. My eyes and my heart will always be there. So 13 years after Solomon made this prayer, God is answering it. God is giving him the answer. I guess Solomon had to wait 13 years not knowing the answer to his prayer. I don't know. My guess is that God was answering his prayer before that. It's just now he's formally, officially telling him that. God made him wait 13 years to get the official answer. As for you, if you walk before me in integrity of heart and uprightness, as David your father did, and do all I command, and observe my decrees and laws, I will establish your royal throne over Israel forever, as I promised David your father when I said, you shall never fail to have a man on the throne of Israel. But if you or your sons turn away from me, and do not observe the commands and decrees I have given you, and go off to serve other gods and worship them, then I will cut off Israel from the land I have given them, and will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. Israel will then become a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. And though this temple is now imposing, all who pass by will be appalled and will scoff and say, why has the Lord done such a thing to this land and to this temple? People will answer, because they have forsaken the Lord their God, who brought their fathers out of Egypt, and have embraced other gods, worshiping and serving them. That is why the Lord brought all this disaster on them. My guess is that 20 years into it, having finished all of his building activities, the temple and the palace, Solomon's heart was starting to waver, and he no longer had as clear a vision and purpose for the Lord as he did before, and he was starting to slide. He's past his high peak of spirituality in his life and is now on the descent. And God appeared to him again. What is your problem, Cat? She's so annoying. It's so incredibly annoying. To warn him against doing that. It's annoying. It's so incredibly annoying. When Solomon had finished the temple of the Lord in the royal palace, and had succeeded in carrying out all he had in mind to do in the temple of the Lord in his own palace, the Lord appeared to him at night and said, there is no need to act like this, Timber. You're weird. I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself as a temple for sacrifices. When I shut up the heavens so there is no rain, or command locusts to devour the land, or send a plague among my people, if my people who are called by my name, so he will do this to his people if they disobey him. Simply being a child of God does not mean you are immune to punishment for disobedience, not at all. It didn't mean that then, it doesn't mean that now. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Now my eyes will be open and my ears attentive to the prayers offered in this place. I have chosen and consecrated this temple so that my name may be there forever. My eyes and my heart will always be there. As for you, if you walk before me as David your father did, and do all I command, and observe my decrees and laws, I will establish your royal throne, as I covenanted with David your father when I said, you shall never fail to have a man to rule over Israel. But if you turn away and forsake the decrees and commands I've given you, and go off to serve other gods and worship them, then I will uproot Israel from my land which I have given them, and will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. I will make it a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. And though this temple is now so imposing, all who pass by will be appalled and will say, why has the Lord done such a thing to this land and to this temple? People will answer, because they have forsaken the Lord their God, the God of their fathers who brought them out of Egypt, and have embraced other gods, worshiping and serving them. That is why he brought this disaster on them. So God will bring disaster on his people. Being a child of God is not a ticket to immunity from consequences of bad decisions. Not at all. Not at all. At the end of 20 years, during which Solomon built these two buildings, the temple of the Lord and the royal palace, King Solomon gave 20 towns in Galilee to Hiram, king of Tyre, because Hiram had supplied him with all the cedar and pine and gold he wanted. They were business partners. But when Hiram from Tyre went to see the towns that Solomon had given him, he was not pleased with them. What kind of towns are these you've given me, my brother? He asked. And he called them the land of Kabul. Kabul means, or it sounds like the Hebrew for good for nothing. The name they have to this day. Now Hiram had sent to the king 120 talents of gold. I don't really know what's going on here. There's some sort of business deal that apparently doesn't go according to plan. It doesn't lead to war. Here is the account of the forced labor King Solomon conscripted to build the Lord's temple, his own palace, the supporting terraces, the wall of Jerusalem, and Hazor, Megiddo, and Gezer. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, had attacked and captured Gezer. He had set it on fire. He killed its Canaanite inhabitants, and then gave it as a wedding gift to his daughter Solomon's wife. And Solomon rebuilt Gezer. Now Gezer, let's see if we have an easy way to identify Gezer. I like that name, Gezer. I don't know how you pronounce these names. I have said before, and I'll say it again, I have no clue. They're not English names to begin with. You know, they're ancient names from another tongue, another culture, 3,000 plus years ago. Yeah, I didn't think so. It's not that comprehensive of a Bible. Oh boy. Let's see here. Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it very easily. I didn't have this reference checked. Anyway, Gezer was a town that was supposed to be an Israelite town to begin with. They had apparently lost it at some point to the Canaanites, and Egypt got it back, and then gave it to them as a gift for, to Pharaoh's daughter, who was Solomon's wife at this time. He, back to Solomon again, built up Lor, Beth Horon, Baalath, and Tadmor in the desert within his land, as well as all his store cities, and the towns for his chariots and for his horses, whatever he desired to build in Jerusalem, in Lebanon, and throughout all the territory he ruled. So he didn't build just a temple and a palace in Jerusalem. He built up a lot of cities and port towns elsewhere too. All the people left from the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, the people who were not Israelites. That is, their descendants remaining in the land, whom the Israelites could not exterminate. These people Solomon conscripted for his slave labor force, as it is to this day. But Solomon did not make slaves of any of the Israelites. They were his fighting men, his government officials, his officers, his captains, and the commanders of his chariots and charioteers. They were also the chief officials in charge of Solomon's projects, 550 officials supervising the men who did the work. After Pharaoh's daughter had come up from the city of David to the palace Solomon had built for her, he constructed the supporting terraces. 3 times a year, Solomon sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings on the altar he had built for the Lord. I'm assuming these are the 3 feast days, but I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. The 3 festivals. Burning incense before the Lord along with them, and so fulfill the temple obligations. And this is not a reference to him doing this himself. Only the priests could do this. Only the priests could offer the sacrifices of burning incense. So when it says that Solomon is doing it, he's just the one providing the materials. When you came to the temple to offer your animal, you brought the animal, you did a few things at the start of the procedure, and then the priest, you killed the animal. You actually were the one who killed the animal. But then the priest did all the rest. So the priests are actually conducting it. They're the ones who are physically doing it. But you're the one, the worshiper, bringing it to be done. The text does not condemn Solomon for offering the sacrifice. In fact, it says he fulfilled the obligations. So clearly he's not doing anything wrong here. So he himself is not doing this. He's the one offering the materials, offering sacrifices. King Solomon also built ships at Ezion-Geber, which is near Elath and Edom on the shore of the Red Sea. That's to his south, which is where he has his a connection. And Hiram sent his men, sailors who knew the sea, to serve in the fleet with Solomon's men. They sailed to Ophir and brought back 420 talents of gold, which they delivered to King Solomon. So they have a port. Now, Hiram is the king of Tyre, which is this Phoenician city on the coast of Israel to the north. So he has access to the Mediterranean Sea, but he doesn't have easy access to the Red Sea to the south. But Solomon does. But Solomon's people don't know anything about the sea. The Israelites are not a seafaring people and would never be a seafaring people, ever. This is the closest they ever came to being a seafaring people. And even here, they're not the ones doing it. They're doing it with Hiram's men, because Hiram has the people and the ships and the experience, the know-how. He doesn't have a port, at least not a port to the south. Solomon has a port to the south, but he does not have the men, the ships, or the experience, or the know-how. So he needs that, and Hiram needs a port, so they're working together, and they have established a port line to the south, down the Red Sea and getting to the countries beyond there, without having to go through the Mediterranean all the way around Africa. Second Chronicles 8, same material. At the end of 20 years, during which Solomon built the temple of the Lord in his own palace, Solomon rebuilt the villages that Hiram had given him. So this arrangement that Hiram and Solomon had these towns apparently happened earlier, and then Solomon eventually rebuilt these villages, which for some reason there was something wrong with them, so he rebuilt them after he got them back, and settled Israelites in them. Apparently they were not Israelite settlements to begin with. Solomon then went to Hamath Zobah and captured it. He also built up Tadmor in the desert and all the store cities he had built in Hamath. He rebuilt Upper Beth Horon and Lower Beth Horon as fortified cities, with walls and with gates and bars, as well as Baalath and all his store cities, and all the cities for his chariots and his horses, whatever he desired to build in Jerusalem, and Lebanon, and for all the territory he ruled. All the people left from the Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. These people were not Israelites. That is, their descendants remaining in the land, whom the Israelites had not destroyed. These Solomon conscripted for his slave labor force, as it is to this day. Well, probably not in the days of the chronicler, but whatever text he's copying word for word apparently was true in that day. I don't think it would have been true in the day of the chronicler. But Solomon did not make slaves of the Israelites for his work. But Solomon did not make slaves of the Israelites for his work. They were his fighting men, commanders of his captains, and commanders of his chariots and charioteers. They were also King Solomon's chief officials, 250 officials supervising the men. Solomon brought Pharaoh's daughter up from the city of David to the palace he had built for her, for he said, "My wife must not live in the palace of David, king of Israel, because the places the ark of the Lord has entered are holy." Apparently, this lady, this Egyptian princess, never converted to Solomon's God. And as we'll see later on, the women that Solomon married converted him to their gods. And apparently, as long as he was married to this Pharaoh's daughter person, she never converted to Yahweh. She was always following her gods, apparently. On the altar of the Lord that he had built in front of the portico, Solomon sacrificed burnt offerings to the Lord, according to the daily requirements for offerings commanded by Moses, for Sabbaths, new moons, and the 3 annual feasts, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of Weeks, and the Feast of Tabernacles. So the King's writer only mentions the 3 feasts. The Chronicles writer says he brought more than that. In keeping with the ordinance of his father David, he appointed the divisions of the priests for their duties, and the Levites to lead the praise and to assist the priests according to each day's requirements. I mean, the Levites no longer have their original purpose available to them. They were originally meant to carry the stuff. But the stuff doesn't need to be carried anymore because it's not being moved around anymore. So now they need new duties, which David assigned them. He also appointed the gatekeepers by divisions for the various gates, because this was what David, the man of God, had ordered. They did not deviate from the king's command to the priests or to the Levites in any matter, including that of the treasuries. So the chronicler is telling the people of his day, this is how you should still do it. All Solomon's work was carried out from the day the foundation of the temple of the Lord was laid until its completion. So the temple of God was finished. The temple of the Lord was finished. Then Solomon went to Ezion-Geber in Eloth on the coast of Edom. And Hiram sent him ships commanded by his own officers, men who knew the sea. These, the Solomon's men, sailed to Ophir and brought back 450 talents of gold, which they delivered to King Solomon.